Welcome back to the training on building Microsoft Teams apps and solutions. As a reminder, you can post your questions in the Q&A panel during the live session, and our team will answer your questions there. Yesterday, we covered Extend Your Solution with Microsoft Graph. Today, we will cover building Teams apps using solution accelerators. Now let's move on to our topic on building Teams apps using solution accelerators, where we'll be covering the following: Power Apps and Power Automate integration with Teams, SharePoint Framework, AppTemplates, and Team Mobile Platform Extensibility.
Hi everyone, welcome to our session on Power Apps and Teams. I am Efesa Origbo. I'm a Senior Program Manager on the Teams platform team, and with me is
Matthew, and I'm from the Power Apps team.
Great, good to have you, Matthew. So what we'll be talking about today is Power Apps and how you can bring in your Power Apps into Teams. Power Apps is a low-code approach to building applications. Instead of writing code in an IDE like Visual Studio, you actually draw your app like a picture. And we take care of generating the code that you need on the back end to make your application actually work. What's beautiful about Power Apps is, in addition to giving you this low-code approach to building applications, you're able to connect to a host of other services using over 200 connectors that we have available. There is the Common Data Service that you can use as a fully managed, fully governed backend to store your data. There's rich integrations with O365, Azure, Dynamics, and we have the governance and security model that Microsoft is known for back in Power Apps. So overall, a rich and very compelling low-code offering that we have. And what's also interesting about Power Apps is that it is part of the Power Platform family. So here you have not just Power Apps, but actually Power BI for doing rich insights and analytics with your data. You have Power Automate, which helps to do process automation for your workflows and business processes. And the newest member, Power Virtual Agents, which really allows you to create bots in a low-code fashion. All of this sits on top of the Common Data Service, as I mentioned earlier. There is the AI Builder, which really allows you to bring in AI capabilities into the services above, again, using a low-code manner. And there's a bunch of connectors, over 200, as I mentioned earlier. So let's switch gears and start really focusing on what Power Apps look like in Teams. And I'll start by showing you a few examples. So in education, we have Tacoma Public Schools. And what's interesting about this example is that the builder of the app, Lauren Taylor, is not a developer. She's an assistant principal, but she was able to build this application herself to help her students really get rich insights on their reading assessments. So before this app, all the students really got was a score, one score, but there wasn't a lot of context behind that score. But once she got onto Power Platform, she was able to build a Power App. She was able to bring that Power App into Teams and share that app with her teachers and with the students as well. That allowed them to capture not just a single score, but the rich unstructured insights around that score. So that way, learning plans could be tailored to actually suit what the student needed at the time. Next example is Telstra, which is a telecommunications company out of Australia. And what Telstra has been able to do is to build a suite of Power Apps that enable folks in the field to very easily take the content that they need with them to be productive and to be able to send insights back to HQ. So they built a few Power Apps here, and it has really helped to drive the productivity of the folks in the field and accelerate the transformation of the entire company. My third and final example is the Red Cross. And what the Red Cross has been able to do is to create an experience using Power Apps that's similar to the checkout experience that you would find at Amazon or Best Buy or some other e-commerce site. And they were able to do all of that using Power Apps so that their volunteers in the field can get the equipment that they need to get help to people when they need them. So these are some of the examples of apps that have been built and brought into Teams. Instead of just telling you about Power Apps, we'll actually show you how to build one, and I'll pass it on to Matthew to help us with that.
Great. Well, thank you. So that last example I love because it shows how a non-coder, a citizen developer, is able to pick up a tool like Power Apps and build a solution that allows people in the field to order the equipment that they need. So I'm going to show you what it's like to start from scratch to build a solution like the American Red Cross. So I'm going to pull up Teams and just show you what the final product can look like within Teams. I have in here a team called Supply Management, and inside of it is a channel for inventory requests. Inside of this channel, folks can talk to each other and ask questions about, hey, I made an order, there might be an issue, can you fix it? But what's really critical for us is a tab called Supply Hub that allows folks to make new orders for equipment that they need for the year for their American Red Cross. So now I'm going to show you what it's like to actually build an application like this using Power Apps. So to actually store all of the information that is necessary to order these devices, you can see I have a SharePoint list of products with the mannequins, the gloves, and the other sort of equipment that the American Red Cross needs in order to complete their trainings. What we want to do is have people not interface with this list, but our app. So I'm going to go to Power Apps. This is what you'll see when you log into Power Apps for the first time. This is our home page. I want to go ahead and show you what it's like to start from scratch. Start with a blank canvas from which you can build an application. So to do that, I want to select this first tile, which is creating a Canvas app from blank. I'll go ahead and give it a name. And click Create. And so what Power Apps is doing for me right now is creating a studio by which I can actually wire up all the different pieces. I like to think of it as a mixture of PowerPoint and Excel. In the middle is a canvas where you can wire up all your different pieces, where you can drop in components like a rectangle. And you can resize these different components just like you would in PowerPoint. So for example, if I need a header within my application, I can stretch this rectangle to the top, change its color to maybe red. So I'm going to go ahead and change the theme to fit the American Red Cross theme. And naturally, I need to add some text up here so that the user knows what page they're on. So I'll go ahead and insert a new label and then give it the information. Let's say we're going to create the product screen first. I'll center it, move it exactly where I need to, and change the color of the text so that it really pops on that red background. And then lastly, let's bump up the size of the text so that we know what we're looking at. Great. So with very minimal effort, you're able to use the skills that you have from PowerPoint to start fleshing out the UI for your application. Next, what I want to do is actually show the list of products that a user can actually order with this application that will eventually live inside Teams. To do that, let's go ahead and add in a gallery. And a gallery is basically just a list that allows you to show a bunch of different records. You saw in my Teams list that I already have a bunch of items that I potentially want to show within my app. So to do that, I'll go back to my list. And you can see it's asking me to connect a data source. As I mentioned that Power Apps is great at connecting to over 200 different data sources, and SharePoint is one of them. So if I go ahead and search for SharePoint, SharePoint shows up. I can then select it along with a connection. And all of my recent sites will then appear for me. What I want is this supply management site. And inside of it are all the different SharePoint lists that I can use to store all the information in my application. For this screen, I definitely want the products. But there's also a couple lists for the actual orders and the items that are associated with those orders that I'll select as well. I'll click Connect. And immediately Power Apps was smart enough to know that I should see the list of products here. And it's already providing some of the information that's in this list. So it's showing me the images of the supplies along with their names. And if I want to change them, I can either go to the property pane, just like in PowerPoint, and change the information. For example, I might want to know the number and quantity of this item. And I could also go into the formula bar, and in this way, Power Apps is very similar to Excel, and change the formula to pull the right information. And what's great is Power Apps has a really powerful IntelliSense so that it shows me the information that I need while I'm typing the formulas. So with very minimal effort, I was able to create an application that shows me a list of products. Given some extra time, I could create the other screens of the application and wire them together using the PowerPoint skills that I have and the Excel skills that I already have to build a full-fledged application that I showed you within Teams. Now, what I want to do now is actually bring this application that I've just created within Teams. First, I'll go ahead and save and publish this app. And then we'll go back into Teams and I'll show you just how easy it is to bring an application that you've built with Power Apps into a tab. So if we go back into Teams, you see that we already have our Supply Hub app, but what if we wanted to add the app that we just built? So what we'll now want to do is add the application that we just created. To do that, you'll want to click on the plus button in this row of tabs, search for Power Apps, select it, and from there you'll get a list of all the applications that you've built. We'll go ahead and look for Supply Hub for American Red Cross, and we can see it's already there. All you have to do is select it and click Save, and it'll add it as a new tab within Teams. And voila, you have all of the list of products that we just saw within our SharePoint site within a Power App embedded within Teams. Now, the last thing that you can do to make sure that your app really works within Teams is to make your app responsive. To do that, you'll want to go back to your application, go to the application settings, and adjust the screen and orientation settings. What we'll want to do is turn off scale to fit, which allows the aspect ratio of the application to stay fixed, and click apply. And now we want to write formulas, just like in Excel, to make sure that the application looks good no matter what the screen size is. So for example, if we go to this red bar, we'll want to make sure that the width is always the width of the parent, the width of the screen. And the same goes for this text right here. And we'll go ahead and move it over to the left. And then lastly, we'll want to make sure our gallery is always centered and looks great within the middle of the screen. So we'll go ahead and change its width to the parent as well. We'll shave off a bit so that it looks good with some padding. And then we'll move this over to the right so that it's centered. And then lastly, we want to make sure that the height respects the parent as well. Now to update my application within Teams, all I have to do is save and publish this application within Power Apps, and then it'll instantly be published within Teams. So I've gone ahead and saved it. I'll click the Publish button to publish this version of the app. And now, if I go back into Teams and refresh this tab, I'll have the responsive version. I'll have the responsive version of this application. Great. And with that, I'll pass it back to Faiza.
All right, so now we want to talk about how to bring the Power Apps that you have created into Teams. Matthew has already started giving us a flavor of that, but we want to go a little deeper. So the first thing I want to mention is that every Power App that you build is really a Teams app. It's a very quick and easy way to bring it into Teams. And once you do that, you can get benefits like really having your app where work and collaboration is already happening. IT admins can distribute these apps in a scalable manner using constructs like setup policies, which I would show as part of this session. And then frontline workers have this single pane of glass that they can go to get everything they need to get their work done. So how do we really make this happen? How do we bring Power Apps into Teams? There are three main options. One is the channel tab, which Matthew has already shown us. Then we have the ability to upload the app as a custom personal or team app. I will be showing that. And then there's the third option, which is really the admin option, to do a scalable distribution of Power Apps in Teams using setup policies. And I'll be showing that as well. So first we have channel tab, which Matthew has already walked us through, and that's an option that's available. But next we have the ability to upload a Power App as a custom app. And the way in which that works is from the Power Apps portal, I go into Power Apps, and the first thing I do is I try to find my app. So I go to apps, and this is an app that's been shared with me. So I go to org apps, and then I click on add to Teams. When I do that, I get this button that allows me to download my app. And what Power Apps is doing in the background is generating a Teams manifest. Once I download this manifest, I'm able to go into Teams and upload that Power App as a custom app. So what you're seeing on my screen here is that I'm going into Teams. And once I am in Teams, I actually go in and I go into apps. So I go in, and once I've made everything look pretty here, I click on apps. So here we go, click on apps, and then I click on upload a custom app. I pick that manifest, and I get this details page. I click on add. Once I click on add, my app is available and ready to go. So this is a way in which I can add the app for myself. There's a little bit of customization settings or configuration settings I need to approve, but my app is essentially ready to go here. Great. So next option is uploading Power Apps to the Teams tenant app catalog. So here is when I want to kind of distribute my app broadly to my team or even to my organization. So the way in which I do that is, again, I go to apps, but this time, since I'm an admin, I see upload for Contoso, which is my tenant name. And when I pick that app manifest, this time what happens is that app, instead of showing me a details page immediately, that app actually gets uploaded into the tenant app catalog. And that's what you're seeing happening right here. So under apps, if I go to build for Contoso, I see all the apps for my tenant. Right now I have just one. When I click on it, I have the ability to actually add that app for myself, but this time from the store. So here we go. The app is available. And the final option I want to show is uploading Power Apps to the tenant app catalog and provisioning using setup policies. For this section, there's actually 3 steps. The first is uploading the Power App to the Teams tenant app catalog, which I just showed you. So you have to get your app into the tenant app catalog. Next, you have to create a setup policy in the Teams admin center. So you have to go to admin.teams.microsoft.com. And of course, you have to be the admin to be able to perform this activity. But once you get in there, you go into Teams, apps, and setup policies. And here I'm going to go ahead and create a setup policy. So my setup policy I will call Contoso Asset Checkout. and I'll go ahead and add an app. So here, what you see is me searching for the app I uploaded earlier, the Contoso Asset Checkout app. And there you go. It's added. It's now part of my app rail. Here, I have the ability to actually customize how this app rail looks. So here, I'm moving Asset Checkout up so that it's easier for users to find. And boom, I save. My setup policy is ready to go. So that's step 2. The final step is really applying that setup policy to a user. So here you see me having my policy ready to go. I click on Manage Users, and then I search for a user like Bianca. I apply this policy to Bianca, and there you go. She now has the policy available to her. It takes some time for the policy to propagate. So what I did was I added that same policy for Megan. And there you go. It's Megan. And you can see Contoso Asset Checkout. It's on row number 3, already pinned for the user, ready to go every single time they come into Teams. So that's the value of actually applying setup policies, is you can customize the experience of Teams so that people have what they need to get their work done. So there you go. This is all we have for you today as far as integrating your Power Apps as well as Power Automate into Teams. We have a few resources here that you can go on to learn more and really begin your journey of integrating Power Apps and Power Automate with Teams. You're only constrained by your imagination, and we're very excited to see what you would build. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Loki Mayberg. I'm one of the platform PMs here at Microsoft Teams working on the platform team. And specifically, I work on the tabs area. So for those of you unfamiliar with the capabilities of apps inside of Teams, there are bots, messaging extensions, connectors, and tabs. Tabs allow you to host your own web app inside of Teams. And one of the things I'm going to be talking about is the SharePoint Framework and how you can use the SharePoint Framework to build your web app and host that inside of Teams. So throughout this, I'm going to be talking about SharePoint Framework at a high level, what it is. Then I'm just going to jump straight into a tutorial on how you can get started. And then at the end, I'm going to show you some of the new features that we've been working on that's available to developers today. So what is the SharePoint Framework? Well, it's a client-side development solution for Office, but really calling it the SharePoint Framework does a disservice to how powerful this framework truly is. If I could rename it, I would think about it as almost the Office framework, or maybe even the Microsoft framework. And the reason I say that is because it does so much more than just run inside of SharePoint. It comes with graph APIs out of the box, authentication. You don't have to worry about that. It does it for you out of the box as well. Free hosting as well. So you just host your application on SharePoint. That means it's going to be globally distributed, backed by our battle-tested CDNs, and it just does all of this stuff for you out of the box. So if you're thinking about building a solution that integrates with Office or integrates with other Microsoft properties, the SharePoint Framework really is just a great way to get started. Some of the more nitty-gritty details, it comes with a UI library out of the box. It uses UI Fabric, or Fabric UI, and that means it's responsive. It's going to work on web as well as mobile. And finally, it supports, it's framework agnostic. So it supports React and a bunch of other JavaScript libraries, or just vanilla JavaScript as well. So really, again, just to reiterate that, if you're thinking about building a solution for that uses Office properties like Graph or Azure AD, this is really the best way for you to get started without having to worry about all of that boilerplate code up front. So let's just jump straight into a demo. Let's get started quick. I just want to show you real quick what this looks like. So you're probably familiar with this already. These are the little apps you'll be building. So these are the apps, for example, and you can add these to your SharePoint page. You're probably familiar with that already. So I'm going to be running through this tutorial, and I'm just going to skip some of the stuff near the end, but this is basically the Hello World example on how to get started. And so, yeah, let's just jump right in. Let's go over here. gonna make a directory. I'm gonna jump into that directory, and I'm gonna run the Yeoman generator, which is this one right here. And this Yeoman generator is going to kick off a bunch of questions for us to answer as we get set up and start setting up the scaffolding for this application. So here we go. Pick the first name. We're going to pick SharePoint Online. We're going to use the current folder. Do you want to allow tenant admin the choice of being able to deploy the solution to all sites? Yes. Will the component in the solution require permissions to access web APIs? No. We're going to be building a web part. That's those little web parts that I showed earlier on the SharePoint page. What do you want to call this? Sure. Let's call it the VILT app. Sure. No JavaScript framework. You saw there was an option for React or Knockout JS as well. And we're just going to let this run this. You can go get a coffee. It's going to take a while and just pull down all of the dependencies onto your local machine. And there we go. So the generator has just finished running. So we should have a SharePoint solution up and running. Let's go take a look at it quick. So just want to talk a little bit about the folder structures in here. Actually, let's come back to the folder structures in a little bit. For now, let's just go and edit the manifest. Got this manifest here. I have this little scratch pad for notes. We're going to take these supported host types and we're going to add them here. So you'll see there's this property called supported hosts that basically tells SPFX where it's allowed to run. So right now it's allowed to run as a SharePoint web part. And I'm going to add two more here. I'm going to add a Teams tab and I'm going to add a Teams personal app. So that's going to tell SPFX that this application can run in SharePoint and it can run as both a Teams tab as well as a dedicated personal app. So I'm going to save that. Next thing we want to do, let's just go check it out quick. Let's run gulp serve. So while we wait for gulp serve to finish, I just want to talk a little bit about gulp serve quickly. And that is that if this is the first time you're running gulp serve, you might get a certificate error and it might not work for you. In order to get the SharePoint Workbench working, you need to also run gulp trust dev cert. What that's going to do is it's going to install a developer certificate on your machine, and it's going to allow you to run the SharePoint Workbench, which gets served from gulp serve. So let's go look over at what gulp serve generated. This is the SharePoint Workbench, and it allows us to do local development of SharePoint web parts. So if I click here, you should see there's the app that we created. And voila, this is the basic Hello World application that you can build with SharePoint, with the SharePoint framework. Now, there are other things in the tutorial that you can follow, such as making your code contextually aware of things inside of Teams, such as understanding the theme in Teams, like if it's in dark mode, if it's in high contrast mode, as well as further instructions on how you can use SharePoint lists to get data and store data. But for the purposes of this simple Hello World application, I'm just going to skip that. You can feel free to look through this doc just to understand how it works. But now that we have this application running locally, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to upload this to SharePoint. So let's go to that application. And like I said earlier, I wanted to just take some time and talk about the folder structures in here. So in order for us to generate a package for SharePoint, we need to run a few more commands. We need to run bundle ship and bundle package solutions. Let's go over here. Let's just cd to that directory. And in here, we are going to run gulp bundle ship. This will bundle our package for us. And then after this command is finished, we're going to run gulp package solution. And this final command is the one that's actually going to take all of your JavaScript code and bundle it into a SharePoint package file for you. So great, now that it's done, let's just go look at the folder structures here. The SharePoint folder is where your SharePoint solution is going to be packaged. So this is the SharePoint package that was generated from that command. So I'm going to go back to, I'm going to show you how to get to the SharePoint app catalog. I'm going to go to the Office admin portal. I'm going to find SharePoint. It's the SharePoint admin portal. I'm then going to go to more features. I'm then going to go to apps. I'm going to go to my app catalog. Now, if you don't have an app catalog set up yet, you might have to set up your first app catalog. I've already set up an app catalog. I just called it Kitchen Sink. And I'm going to click here. And this is really the main screen that you're going to want to land on. And here you can see some of the other apps that I've already bundled into this app catalog into SharePoint. I'm going to take this package file that I just created, and I'm just going to drop it right into here. And you're going to see this dialog, and you want to make sure that you select this option to make the solution available to everyone inside of the organization. I'm just going to deploy that right now. And you'll see here's the solution down at the bottom over here. So now if I go back to a SharePoint page, I'm just going to refresh this. Sorry for all the interstitials there. The next thing you want to do, if I click here, VILT, there's that application, the Hello World app that we just created. I'm going to drop it right in here, and voila. There's a little simple Hello World app. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to take our SharePoint package and we want to publish it to Teams. So to do that, I'm going to go back to my app catalog. I'm going to select the application that we just created. I'm going to click Files, and then I'm going to click Sync to Teams. Now, just to show you that it is going to sync to Teams, I'm going to go to my LOB app catalog inside of Teams. So this is the Teams store. And you're going to get an app catalog specifically for your organization. So just navigate to that. You'll see our VILT app is not in here yet. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to click Sync to Teams. Now this Sync to Teams button is available because if you remember earlier, we set these supported hosts to be both a Teams tab as well as a Teams personal app. I'm going to click this button and wait for it to run. So now that I have the application running inside of SharePoint, I'm going to come onto this screen. I'm going to select the application. I'm going to click Sync to Teams. Just give it a few seconds to complete. And voila, successfully synced to Teams. So let's go over here. Let's refresh our Teams App Store. And voila, here you see the application that we just created, and it's been packaged into the Teams App Store for the rest of my organization. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over to a team. Going to click plus. I'm going to find that application and add it to this team. Just give it a second to ping back. There we go. I'm going to click save. And voila, here you have that application running right inside of Teams. So pretty cool. You can see I built one solution and I'm able to make the solution run in both SharePoint as well as in Teams. One of the other things is you might have noticed I said SharePoint personal app. So that means that this application is also going to be available to run here for me as well. So you'll notice that the theming is slightly different. And the reason for that is because in this Hello World application, I'm not doing anything specific to adjust the theme. And so it's just picking one at random. That is going to be fully under your control, as well as this application can understand things about Teams through the Teams SDK as well. So you can change the theme depending on what Teams' theme is, if it's in dark mode or high contrast mode. Great. So that's the demo part done. Now let's talk about, who's this for? Like, what's the persona? Who are the personas that we're after with this solution? So for the end user, the user typically has applications such as expense reporting tools, time off request tools that they already have inside of SharePoint. And since more of the organizations have been using Teams, they want to make sure that those applications that they're used to using inside of SharePoint are also available for them inside of Teams. And so that's really about bridging, making sure that the solution is available to the user regardless of where they are inside of Office. For an IT administrator, they just really want to reduce the number of places where they have to manage and deploy these solutions. So for SharePoint IT admins, this is a great way for them to be able to validate and check solutions. And if they're happy with it, they can just click sync to Teams and it'll publish it to Teams for the rest of the organization over there. And from a developer's perspective, they just want to build one solution and then they want that solution to be available everywhere. So using the SharePoint framework, a developer is able to build a solution for SharePoint, but also for Teams. And then recently released to developer preview is the ability for a developer to make their solution available in Office add-ins as well. So that just really helps a developer get the broadest reach for their applications. And then finally, a developer just wants to reduce the number of concepts that are available to them. So in this way, they just need to have a single mental model for how to develop Office applications and make those available across the Office suite. And that's where SharePoint and Teams comes in. So SharePoint Framework web parts can be exposed as Microsoft Team tabs. They're automatically hosted inside of SharePoint for free, and they're executed within the context of SharePoint. So there's no real additional complexity or on hosting or deployment. And that also means that the application can take advantage of all of the goodness that comes with SharePoint and the SharePoint framework, such as something I didn't show off is using SharePoint lists to store information and to retrieve information. And then finally, that SharePoint solution inside of Teams has access to all of the Teams context, such as who's in the channel, what's the tab entity ID, what's the theme that I'm currently in, and it just makes for a much more featureful solution. So recently, we've released support for these same experiences running as personal apps. So what are personal apps? Personal apps are these applications that are off to the left-hand side, and they're just for you. They don't exist inside of a channel. And this is great for building solutions that don't make sense inside of a team or a group context. Like expense reporting tools is a great example. Expense reporting tools just make sense for myself. There's no reason to upload it to a group chat. One of the other things you might notice is you have a much bigger dedicated canvas for these applications to exist. And finally, they're pinnable by the user. So I can come in here and I can unpin this, or I can come in here and I can pin this application to my app rail here on the side. I want to talk a little bit about this Leads application. It's the one I use quite frequently to show off some of the cool features of SPFX. And this solution is built entirely in SPFX. It works in both a channel as well as a personal app. And you can just find the code for that right here at SharePoint/sp-dev-solutions. And in here, you're going to find the Leads LOB solution. And in here, you can find the SharePoint solution as well as the Teams manifest to be able to run this locally on your machine, just to test things out or kick the tires. Oh, no need for a demo because I already just shown you that Leads solution. Finally, one of the things that I'm super excited about is the fact that all of these are mobile ready. So the UI library that comes with SPFX is responsive, and we've done work to understand SPFX apps inside of Teams on the mobile application side of things. So this is a great way, back to that expense reporting tool. if you build a simple expense reporting tool and you upload it as a personal app, it's going to be available for for the rest of your org to take advantage of. One of the other things is I want to just talk about SharePoint intranet portals. So it's possible today to take an existing SharePoint site and package it as a dedicated standalone application inside of Teams. And I'm just going to show you that real quick. So I'm going to go to Teams. And here is my Contoso intranet. This is a SharePoint page that I have published as a standalone application inside of Teams. So this is great if you've invested in a SharePoint site or a SharePoint page and you want to take all of that goodness that you've created and you want to bring it over to Teams. And I'm going to show you how that's done. So I'm going to go to App Studio and we're just going to take a look at the manifest that I created for this. Contoso intranet. I'm going to go down to tabs and I'm just going to select one of these pages over here. So you'll notice that the URL that I'm pasting in is slightly different than the URL I would typically get from the browser. And so let's take a look at that. I'm going to take this URL and I'm going to run over to my demo notes and I'm just going to paste this in here. So generally speaking, it's going to be https / the subdomain that you're hosting it at. And then you want to make sure that you are pointing it to some site and you are pointing it to this layout 15, which you might be familiar with, but really in particular, you want to make sure that you're pointing it to this teamslogon.aspx file. This file is going to be responsible for handling all of the authentication that's necessary for the user to view that site. Once the user has visited this site, make sure you add this query string parameter, but the important one is going to be this destination parameter. So whatever you put in here is the URL that it's going to redirect to. So after it's logged in, it's going to redirect to this URL over here. So this is what the full URL is going to look like in the example that I just showed you. That'll take care of part of it. The next part is making sure that the SSO solution works. So I spoke about that Teams logon page. Go into the domains and permissions section. Under AAD app ID, make sure you paste in this app ID. And I've kept that pasted in here inside of the presentation for you. Once that part's done, the last part is just make sure that you set the single sign-on resource URL to be the full domain name of your SharePoint site. So in this case, aristolabs.sharepoint.com. And once you've done that and you test and distribute it, you install it, you're going to be able to run that SharePoint page as a dedicated standalone application inside of Teams. And it'll be available for you on mobile as well. So pretty cool. It's a great way to take an existing SharePoint site that you've invested a lot in and bring that over into Teams. And that should be the end of the presentation. But before we close, I just wanted to show some of the key resources that are going to be available to you. If you want to go straight to the documentation, this is the URL you want to go and visit, SPFX-Teams. And if you're looking to get started with SPFX, really check out SPFX tutorials or SPDev videos. There's a ton of training material in there for you to get started and familiar with the SharePoint framework. Really, really good resources. I highly recommend them. And that's it. That should be the end. Thank you, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the presentation, and we all look forward to all the cool solutions you build using the SharePoint framework in Teams. Thank you. Bye.
Hello, lovely people of the internet. My name is Nidhi Shandelia, and I'm a Senior Product Manager with Teams Engineering. Today, I want to tell you about a new offering that we have on the Teams platform. This new offering is called AppTemplates. I want to show you what it is and how do you get started on that. Now, as you know, Microsoft Teams has an impressive suite of capabilities as is. That suite of capabilities is made even more powerful by the platform that it exposes. Our developer ecosystem is building applications on top of that platform. Talking about apps, I still remember my very first Hello World in C++ that I wrote 20 years ago. We've come a long way. Learning libraries and frameworks is easy. But creating an app still requires time and thoughtful approach. That's why for Teams platform, we're launching AppTemplates. So AppTemplates are these fully built Teams applications that are open sourced, community driven, and so housed on our Office Dev GitHub link. When it comes to building a useful applications, there are literally three things that matter. Number one is the source code and the design itself. It is that carefully crafted experience that you expose to your end users. Number two, once you have that developed, that has to be housed somewhere. For example, Azure instance in your own tenant. Then you need to expose that application to a channel, for example, Teams. With these app templates, we've automated all of those points so that it's just a matter of few clicks to get your app up and running. Third and final is documentation. You want to make sure that the app that you have exposed and it's up and running, all the stakeholders that are maintaining that app are on the same page. All app templates will ship with extensive documentation. I know I said 3 benefits, but there's 4th additional bonus benefit of app templates. The code is open sourced, and then the app templates ship with a basic configuration UI, which means that you can tweak certain features to vary the experience for your end users. But you can also extend the functionality by hooking it up to your backend business applications to extend and enrich the feature set that your application has. So enough talking. Let me walk you through a quick demo of what the concept is so you know what I'm talking about. So this app template that I want to show you now is called Custom Stickers. We really built this as a lightweight example to prove the concept out. This was also one of the asks from a lot of our customers. The platform exposes rich functionality, so literally anyone could build it. But since many customers were asking for it, we created a template out of it. Self-expression is core to Teams culture, and the ability to use custom branded stickers and GIFs was something that a lot of users wanted. So let me show you how the custom stickers app templates work. I have a messaging extension here that's pinned to my chat experience. I pull it up. I choose a custom sticker that I uploaded for my own tenants, which is this cute little giraffe. And I embed it, put in my own message, and send it. Now you'll notice that this sticker is not available in the standard app that Microsoft Teams shipped. It's also not in the GIF experience. So it literally could be anything that you want to make available for your users. So now I'll show you the end user experience. Let's say I have deployed this app template custom stickers and it's available for my end users. Your end users will discover it as a pinned app in the Compose extension here. You'll click here, bring up the extension, pick up any sticker that the IT admin has made available for the users, and the users will be able to very easily paste it within their chat messages and have interesting conversations. These stickers are not available in the emoji set or GIF set here. These are custom. Speaking of custom stickers and configuration, this is what the configuration for custom stickers look like. As with all app templates, this configuration allows you to do minor tweaks to the end user experience. One point to note here is that this is sitting in your version of Azure. Microsoft has no access to this data and does not have the ability to look at what stickers are being uploaded. So to add a new stickers to make available for my end users, I click Add New. I simply navigate to where my sticker is stored on my personal drive. I find the sticker that I want and I hit Create, and it's available in my repository. I update the messaging extension. Now let's check if that sticker is available to my end users or not. So I bring up the Stickers app, and it's right here. Click on it, and users can go about their conversations just like that. You can also delete the stickers. Deletion is really easy as well. and update the messaging extension the same way. So as you can see, it's really simple to manage these stickers. You can get more people access to this configuration experience so that not one person is needed to do these updations. Let me now walk you over through to how the deployment part works. So we've documented all of the application steps on how to get started in this one simple GitHub repo. And literally after following these steps, deploying to Azure is just a matter of clicking a button. You follow the rest of the documentation and the app is deployed. So the second app template that I want to show you today is called List Search. We know that SharePoint lists power some of the core workflows for our customers. And collaborating in Microsoft Teams quite often references information contained within items in a SharePoint list. And simply pasting a link to an item forces everyone to switch context away from conversations. And to help alleviate this pain, we created a List Search app template. So let me show you how it works. Let's say I'm a manager and I have a lightweight contact list to manage customers and the issues that they have. And I want to bring up a particular customer in question and have a conversation around their experience. I have the List Search app already installed in my chat interface here. I bring it up. I select the list, which is Manage Customers. And then let's say the customer's name is Northwind Traders. The app whips up a bunch of results. I pick the one that's most suitable to me. And then there's metadata available for that list. This is what we had, but this is totally configurable. We can have even more items in here. And all of that is shared as an adaptive card, very contextual. You can have even more layers of information for your users. So I type in, hey team, what's the update on this customer? I can even mention people and have a conversation with them about this individual entity. So let's say I'm a manager and I have a list of customers that I manage and I have a team that supports it. And I have a question about a particular customer. I don't know who's managing that relationship. Without having to context switch, I can whip up the app from here, select my list, search for the customer, and then share that thing as contextual piece of conversation. Notice that I didn't have to go back to the SharePoint list, navigate to the individual record, and get who's the customer PM. It was just within this conversation itself. Now I can type in any message, share it with my team, and everyone can collaborate around it without having to context switch. Now you can imagine many other scenarios where bringing item-level SharePoint list data can be very powerful. The beauty of this app template is that it's configurable, so you can suit it to a variety of needs that you may have. A few other examples of SharePoint lists that are common are bug tracking, company glossary, SKU lookup. We're having a conversation around an individual item within a list becomes very contextual and very powerful. So a few other app templates that we will share with you in this iteration are List Search, which you've seen. There's Custom Stickers, which is, again, a messaging extension that enables custom stickers, GIFs, and images. There's also an app template called Icebreaker. It's a cute little team spot that spurs team culture by pairing people who don't know each other well to build personal connections. The bot pairs people up once a week and then they can set up time for coffee or chat. We're leveraging Graph API, so the bot also suggests time for people to meet that's free for both parties. Other app templates that are going to be coming soon are Celebration Spot, which is a team spot to help the team members remember and celebrate birthdays, anniversaries, and other recurring events. We also are working on a workflow approval app where within a Teams app itself, you can manage workflow approvals within lines of businesses. And lastly, Company Communicator, it's a Teams bot to help disseminate content and announcements to multiple teams and individuals in one go. In near future, we are focusing building these templates for common scenarios in each line of businesses in an organization, such as for HR, culture, IT, DevOps, sales, and marketing. To give these app templates a try, visit our Teams App Templates homepage in this video. The link is https://aka.ms Teams App Templates. Finally, do let us know which app templates you'd like us to build and what would make this offering more meaningful and more productive for you. Leave your thoughts and feedback in the comments below. And once again, I hope you enjoyed this demo. My name is Nidhi Shandelia. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Vikrant Singh and I lead the mobile platform engineering team for Microsoft Teams. I'll start off this session with a brief on Teams Mobile and why mobile platform is important. I'll then be covering some of the platform constructs, the platform architecture, which will help you to understand the stack better. I'll then walk you through some of the core capabilities which we provide from the Teams Mobile platform, and we'll take up one of the sample application and we'll see how to debug that. Toward the end of the session, I'll share some of the best practices which you as the developers of the Teams platform should be following to build a consistent and a great application for Teams Mobile. With that, let's get started. So how we're doing in mobile. So Teams Mobile is one of the best enterprise application out there in the store, which allows you to collaborate in the best possible way. It's one of the highest rated collaboration calling and meeting application from Microsoft, right? And that definitely is seen by the rating and some of the good feedbacks what we have from the store, both on the App Store as well as on the Play Store. Moving next. This is the Teams platform in a gist. It talks about the different graph at the fundamental bottom of it. There are calling, meeting, video, sharing, broadcast support. On top of it sits the Teams platform. The Teams platform was designed from the beginning to allow the features both from the external services to appear as if it's a native application altogether, including the Microsoft services, both from within Microsoft as well as from the third party. We released an early ability to have the private application catalog published on the App Store too. As you hear more about it, there are a rich set of selection from the vertical industry too, which are built on top of the Teams platform. One of the key principles which you follow is 1P equals to 3P, which is the application which is built within the team is same as something how it is built external from Microsoft too, and which allows both the LOB as well as vertical application to come on board. Moving next, platform architecture. This is one of the key architecture which will quickly cover it, and then we'll go to the remaining set for the deep dive. So if you look at the stack at a high level, so this comprises the entire Teams mobile client. At the core of it is the auth module, the networking, the persistence layer, the event management, experimentation, configuration, and telemetry. On top of it sits the mobile platform. So there is an SDK component, there is a device capabilities, the 3P applications, authentication, the policy and settings which drives it, which drives the rest of the platform constructs, which includes tabs, personal application task module. These are the canvas constructs, and the yellow ones are the bot, messaging extensions, and connector. These are primarily the conversational constructs. So the canvas constructs primarily interact with the JS SDK bridge out there, and it's presented via the native web view from the mobile client, within which the 2P or the 3P web application runs inside the web view. Coming to this conversation constructs, both of these, all three of bots, message extension, and connector, they use the Office 365 card out there, and ultimately it's a card view which is rendered the whole of the adaptive card, the bots and the card, and which can internally invoke a task module, and in turn which can launch a web view too. All of these platform capabilities, they interact with the Teams backend services, which include the middle tier, the chat service, the bot infrastructure, the webhook, connectors, and a bunch of others too. The prime capabilities which have been driven from here are the app authentication, the user settings, the entitlement, the app definitions, as well as the bot responses. So with these capabilities, we allow the 2P and the 3P applications to surface, to interact, and to leverage the best possible constructs out there from the Teams platform. At a deeper look at it, at the only in the canvas flows, if you look at it, so All of these are funneled, as we discussed. It's primarily funneled from the JS SDK, and the whole of the identity, authentication, SDK context, they are driven from here. And this is the web view running inside the Teams client, and all the partner application, they leverage the platform SDK to build their behavior out here. Some of the common services is the same what we discussed in the last slide, and some of the common Microsoft services are here, like Exchange, SharePoint, Stream, OneDrive, OneNote, PowerPoint, Excel. So these are definitely the applications which are built within Teams, and they are a part of the platform as a part of a 2P and 3P structure too. It also funnels the bunch of the external 3P services, what we see out here. Coming to the conversation flows, this primarily the whole of the conversation, the bots, the message extensions, the connectors, what you see out here, those are primarily included as a part of the chat services. The application is basically the chat service triggers an interaction with the bot, and the bot is already deployed in the bot infrastructure, and the bot responds with an incoming webhook or a message extension or a connector out there, and it uses that active card or the bot card out here to give the final rendering back to the user. And these are the same Teams services which is used out there, right? Moving next, the capabilities. What are the capabilities we provide from the Teams platform? So if you look at it, this diagram primarily covers two parts of it. It's composed of distinct capabilities, and it shows the 2x2 grid, which is either in a personal scope or in a group scope. So connectors, these are primarily the rich cards, which you can see, which happens from the external system and primarily uses a webhook. Flow is one of the event which is primarily in a low-code, no-code scenario where you can write a script, and that notifications and the entire content, similar to connectors, it keeps coming to the client out there. Bot, you can have the conversational interaction here. Tabs are primarily using the web view experience, whether you get this via HTML, JavaScript out there. Message extensions is another one where when you initiate an interaction chat with the chat or in a channel, you can definitely leverage some of these key extensions which are built to enhance the overall experience out there. Adaptive card or a bot card is finally where it comes out, kinds of come out and renders the content out here. Personal app is a full-fledged HTML content embedded within the Teams, and all of these are supported by the core concepts of authentication, deep link, the core functionality. And this graph talks about whether each of these constructs, they exist in the personal scope as well as in the group scope, right? So like for an example, personal application can kind of exist here. The tabs can be in the personal scope as well as in the group context too, right? Moving next, connectors. The first capabilities what we're talking about is connectors. It's just a way how you want to post a card to a conversation when something happens in external system. So this example primarily talks about, like, we have a connector which is hooked to GitHub, and whenever any developer submits their questions out there, you can get pretty much an interaction out there, say stating what has happened, and you can add a comment, you can view those contents in the GitHub, and you can quickly respond to those. You can easily map it to one of those LOB scenarios too, where any event requires collaboration and you want the team to be notified of it. You can easily leverage connector constructs too. Microsoft Flow. This is one of the low-code, no-code scenario where basically you can write certain scripts, and you can define the workflow, and whenever something happens there, you or the team will get notified accordingly, and you can do it vice versa too. Similar to connector, but it's created with the Microsoft Flow. Moving next, bots. As we discussed, bots are supported both in the personalized as well as in the group chat as well as in the channel conversation too, and mobile is not an exception here. So this primarily talks about, we talked about how the bot infrastructure sits and interacts with the chat service out here, and definitely is what is being shown here. So the example which I'm showing here is one of the Meetuply application, and which shows how you can network with the team, how you can schedule some of those pairing. You can have interaction with a teammate pretty often. You can set up some time, you can chat with them, you can schedule some meeting over there, which helps to have a better engagement with the team too. So this is one of the example of the bot which you see out here. Moving next, forms. So the channel tab. So forms is one of the Microsoft another application which you see out here, and you can pretty much use those in a channel tabs construct. And so tabs, as we discussed, is one of the flagship capabilities from the Teams platform, and under the cover it uses a web view, which is different domains, which is listed here, and Teams SDK interaction happens by the JS bridge. And tabs use the same mechanism to show the content out here, and similar way Word, PowerPoint, Excel document also does the same thing. So if you take a simple example of channel tab, these are basically the forms which shares the questions out here. folks goes and give the responses. You can pretty much view the responses over there. You can create and edit some of the new responses and the questions out there. And that's how it's primarily use case, which you can use it as a channel tab. Moving next, SharePoint is one of the frameworks which has been there from quite some time, and this capability allows us to integrate any of the existing SharePoint framework web parts to be exposed as a part of Microsoft Teams tab, right? Down the line, we will talk about Teams tab. Plus, it's also possible that you can use the SharePoint as a personal app tool. So there are a few clicks out there in the SharePoint tab, and you can pretty much export your existing client in the in Teams too. On the left, you can see one of the sample examples, which is the SharePoint application, how it comes as a channel tab out here. You can definitely take the advantage of SharePoint capabilities to build some of the pretty responsive, pretty lightweight application over there, and which has pretty good, exciting opportunities to go out here. And you don't have to worry about hosting capabilities of the deployment too, because SharePoint itself provides those fundamental capabilities over there. Moving next, let's see message extensions. So message extensions are primarily when you are in the context of a message, whether it's a chat or a channel conversation, you can initiate some of these extension, which kind of gives you a nice view of presenting your content out here. For an example, if someone has done a great job and you want to do a praise to them, you can take one of the praise message extension out here, and you can give the custom text to it, and you can send it to someone else, and it goes out as a pretty nice card out there, and folks use it to recognize the great work what you have been doing so far. So this is one of those message extensions, but you can see like you can develop one which definitely makes more sense for your LOB scenarios, and you can hook it to the Teams platform, right? And that's one of the message extensions out here, but there are a bunch of others too. Moving next, personal application. We talked about application as a tab, which is primarily the conversation on the Canvas flow. Now you can pretty much get that entire web application as a personal application, as a full-fledged personal application within your scopes. For an example, if you look at the planner application out here, you can install it as a personal scope, and it will surface in the 3 dots within an application. And you can pretty much use it the way you are using it across as a purely native application too as well. So these experiences are built for Teams, and that gives a pretty nice experience when you kind of go ahead and use those, and you can pretty much do those activities from within the Teams application itself with a complete context parsing, with a hassle-free SSO and a bunch of other capabilities too. Moving next, this is one of the scenario of LOB, which is basically line of business application. Someone wants to build a personal application for enterprise space. It's perfectly fine. You can go ahead and develop those. You can have those tabs. You can have as a personal application, and the personal application itself, you can have multiple tabs out here listed over there, and you can define the scope of what you want to achieve from the personal application out here. So it basically, these LOB scenarios are really powerful, and it allows you the majority of the Teams what you're using, it gives you the complete real estate, right? And you can definitely leverage it to bring your individual workflows, your line of business scenarios out there in the Teams, and make the collaboration much better. Now let's talk about testing on mobile application. So how do you want to test this on mobile application? So it's not very different from how do you want to test it on desktop, but it comes with a slight twist out there. Now, how do you build an application? So you already know this. I think from the previous sessions, you would have understood how to package your application. There is an app definition out here. There is JSON file. You create an artifact out of it using an app package, using an app icons, and bunch of the manifest definitions following whatever you need for creating an app definition there. You package it out here, and then you kind of use it to upload into the using the Microsoft Teams Studio upload, using the option of upload as a custom application. So how this process of uploading this app package is called side loading. You create your zip, and when you say upload a custom application, you can pretty much get the content out here. You can show it. You can pretty much upload it. It goes as a part of your entitlement, and you should be able to try it out. So I'll show you a quick demo of it, and then I will go further from here. So let's take a simple example out here. So let me take an example out here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm I'm gonna upload an application out here. I'll go to the app catalog here and I will say upload a custom application. So I already have a sample application built for leave management. I'm gonna take it and I'm going to upload it. So when you go and add, you get a bunch of other options over here, whether you want to add this application in your team, chat, or whatsoever it is. So even if you want to add to a team, I can go and say, yes, I want to add it to a team, right? Or I can add to a group chat too. So for time being, I'll just add it to my personal scope and I will say add, and this should reflect in my app tray out there, both in desktop as well as in the mobile. So let's see. So this app gets added and you will see the multiple options what you see out here, like how much is the leave balance, how much is the leave board, what are the public holidays out here, and you can pretty much see that this app is listed right here in the app tray based on my preference what I've set here. Similar way, when you go in the mobile application, there is a sync interval. Post that sync interval, you can definitely go ahead and see that application on your mobile application too. For an example, once the sync interval is done, if you go to your application app tray out here, and if you look at it, there should be definitely a leave application sitting out here, and you can pretty much use it the same way how you have been using it across in the desktop too. The thing is that this goes under the three dot out here, and you can pretty much move it within the bottom bar app tray as well, based on by reordering your application out here, right? So this is how you can kind of upload an application, or basically you can sideload an application and you can verify the behavior both on desktop and mobile, right? The way you build an application is really important here. We'll discuss that in the later part of this on this discussion, like how to make it more performant and more responsive application, which will definitely give you the best experience both in desktop and mobile, right? So moving back, we talked about how do we do this testing, and we did a side loading of an application, and we saw a tab out here, which is basically a personal app out here using the JS SDK view out here. There's also a bot which is involved into it. So if you go back to this bot, and if you talk to the leave bot saying, okay, give me what you want to do, I may want to look for a leave request, I may want to do leave balance, and the bot will start responding to you accordingly, right? So that's primarily, so this is basically an application which is built, which has the capability of working as a personal application, as a tab, and all of those, and that you can definitely see out there using the manifest. So if you open the manifest, you'll definitely get to know the details too. So this manifest has your icons, your manifest JSONs, and everything. So a quick look at it. This is nothing but the schema what we use out here, right? And the app name, the short name, the descriptions, the icons, what are the tabs which are available here, the configuration tab, the static tabs what you see out here. There's a bot associated with it, which we just saw out here. So these are the configurable tabs out here, right? If you look at it, you can quickly correlate it. This is my leave board, this is my public holiday, this is what my help section out here, and there's a bot associated with it, which is basically this bot, and it takes certain commands, right? And that's how it's gonna work. Cool. So this is how about a quick how the manifest, what a manifest contains. A pretty defined manifest schema is already listed out here. You can definitely look at this link, which talks about the latest schema out here, right? So this is where you will see the entire schema definitions, and basically what is expected on each of these attributes and each of these identifier, and what is expected pattern over here. So you can definitely review it offline. I would definitely share this link, and that will help you to construct your application package in a better way. So moving back where we left, we talked about how do we do a testing out here, how do we sideload the package, and how do we verify it. Next thing is the developer preview. So whenever you are sideloading an application, you need to make sure that you are in a dev preview to instantly verify your application on your mobile client or on a desktop client. How do you do that? So you go to the settings page, you go to the about page, you do a dev preview, and then basically you can go ahead and enable that. For example, if I go back here, I go to my settings page, from my hamburger icon, I go to my settings page, I go to the about page, and there is an option for dev preview which to be on or to off, right? So by default it's switched off, and you need to go ahead and enable the dev preview to make it on. Once you enable the dev preview, all of your test or the side-loaded application, whatever you have uploaded, that will be visible on the client, and you can pretty much go ahead and use those and play around with those too, right? So that's how the dev preview works, and that will also open the door for you to kind of go ahead and start debugging your application, whichever you have built, right? Moving next. So this is a quick video of the same thing which we talked about. How do you go ahead and toggle your dev preview? In iOS, you need to do a restart. This is a snapshot from an Android, and that will help you to the flow will guide you to kind of do a prompt. Once you do a restart, dev preview should kick in. Moving next, how does the app submission work? So the app submission is pretty much the same for mobile as well desktop, because in fact you are going to create a same manifest out here in the current point of time. So you create a public catalog, you submit it with the Microsoft App Store submission process, right? You go ahead and use it with the public application, go to the store. Similar way, you can use it, the public store application, to kind of download an application or pretty much to list your application. For an LOB application, only admin can do it. That's one thing which you need to be making sure that, right? And then you can upload it to a specific tenant as well, and no validation is required here. An app is visible to the tenant users as well, right? So we talked about two parts to it. We talked about how do we do a side loading, how do we do a dev preview over here. So this part talked about side loading it, doing a dev preview, and then how do you do it. So for example, for an LOB scenario, it definitely makes sense that you side load an application, test it out on both desktop and mobile, make sure the form factor is working fine, your app is pretty performant, right? And once you are all good with it, you can talk to your administrator, make sure that he does the catalog process. He knows the process about how to list your application. He will upload it. He will do a tenant level entry for it, and all of your LOB tenant should get the application out there. For Teams Mobile, how is this flowed? What exactly is going to be different here, right? So while the capabilities are same, right, during the developer when you do a developer testing, you definitely have to make sure that your app is performant out there for mobile as well. So first of all, you need to submit your application, send it for a validation team. So this is the email ID where you need to send an email alias to email to for your app validation, and the team validates the application. It validates the end-to-end flow. It checks the mobile responsiveness of the tabs, whether authentication is working fine, whether you're using the latest JS SDK or not. There are a bunch of validation around the channel tabs, whether you are whitelisted there to open it within the application, or whether you are bumping it out of the client to whether sometimes the tab open outside the browser too, right? Then the personal application validation is also done, which is primarily at this point of it's in dev preview, but soon we'll do a GA for it. And we check for the authentication, the responsiveness. If the app is not certified, your app will not be available on mobile. So just be cognizant of that. Make sure that you write a well-behaved application, which is really, really important for you to get the overall traction what you need for mobile, right? If the app is not certified, app is not going to be available on the store. Coming to debugging on mobile. So we talked about dev preview, how you can enable the dev preview, how you can sideload an application, and then how your app will start listing there. Now the question is, how do you do a dev preview? So let's take a quick stack of things what we have here. So what you need to do here, there's a clear documentation. We'll just go through it in some time. So you need to go to Chrome Inspect and say devices. You can also go to the ADB devices and see whether a device is running. Sometimes if the ADB bridge is gone, if it is shut down, you need to start that. Make sure that you do ADB start on Android, and then you can cross check by saying ADB devices. Right now, you know that there is a simulator which is up and running, and your ADB server is able to connect to it. Right. So when you go to the Chrome Inspect devices, if you're not seeing an application, if you're not seeing a device or emulator running over there, definitely make sure that you run the ADB command, which will bring it up. So once it is done, your Chrome is able to kind of go ahead and check this out. Let's take a simple example and see how are you going to do it of debugging here, right? So let's take a simple example of GitHub. When you open the GitHub application, there are it knows there are two pages which are here, right? Which is basically your first application over here, and there are two more pages out here plus more tab. If you open the first page here, it's going to be opening up a preview in for the Android simulator, and you can pretty much see everything out here. If I refresh this page, you will see all the network requests which is getting fired and how much time it's going to take on from the mobile browser, which is what is running here. And for this discussion, I'm just running it on a simulator. You can pretty much do the same thing on a device from where you have deployed the store application. You can connect it by ADB bridge. You should be able to see your device instead of simulator here, and you can do the same exercise which I'm showing it out here for you. So you can see a network traffic which is going out to get your artifacts, to get your icons and everything. You can pretty much inspect your element. You can go to this HTML content, and you can see how is this whole of this page is constructed. You can pretty much inspect each div, each content, each style classes which is attached here. You can pretty much see. You can change it on the fly. You can try out those. You can look at the console logs here. If something has failed, okay, there is something which has failed here in this application, you can pretty much go ahead and check that out and debug that too, right? So that's multiple way how you can debug it, both the responsiveness of an application, both the network call, the performance, and all of those. So Chrome gives pretty much a good capabilities out here. You can pretty much leverage that and make sure that your app is responsive. Same way when you're building it on iOS, when you're building a performant application, you should definitely use the Safari Tech Preview, and you should make sure that you use the iPhone version of it, both at least the iPhone 7 or 8, whatever you have latest in the market, to the latest series. What you have is iPhone XR, XS, and bunch of those what we have out here. So it's always good to try out the different form factors to see how your app behaves, and the better behaved it is on a device, you are gonna get better traction from the customer base whom you're targeting out here. So it's really important that you do your homework in giving the right experience to the end user, right? So this was primarily about the dev debugging. We talked about those, and if you close it, if you go to any of the authenticated application out here, I'll just go back to one of the, let's take the leave example out here. If you go to the leave bot and you kind of go ahead and inspect this element, you will get to know, okay, these are my elements out here. This is the one which is already authenticated. First time you might, depending upon the application, whether the app requires you to do a silent authentication or a single sign-on, you might be prompted accordingly. And once you're done, you are good to go for the next times, right? So this is how it's gonna work, and it pretty much is gonna work the same way how it's gonna be on the iOS side. I'm just showing up an iOS simulator 2 for you to try it out. But yes, right now this is dev preview is off. You can go ahead and you can change the dev preview on, and all the applications what you see, most of the applications which you see out here should be visible to you on other platform too, right? For iOS right now, there is a Apple guideline for the store application. You may not be able to debug it, but definitely you can use a Safari Tech Preview to kind of preview the responsiveness of an application, and you can debug the network traffic and rest of those definitely using the Android device. So that's primarily on the dev debugging side. We should move ahead from here now. We talked about dev debugging capabilities. Here is a recording, pretty much the same thing which I showed here, and you can use it to view your logs, inspect the element, inspect the network, put the breakpoint, and go through. Moving next, I think we talked about a bunch of those. All the dev debugging links are listed here, and I'm going to show it here quickly. So this is where the dev preview talks about. So everything what you need to do on the menu when you do a side loading of an manifest, you need to make sure that dev preview is enabled both on the web client as well as the mobile client, and this link definitely documents what you need to do to get the dev preview on. There are certain features which you have in the dev preview too, which are listed here, which is exhaustively documented here. This might change on time-to-time basis, but this definitely gives you a sense of understanding what all capabilities are in which is under dev preview. Dev toolings for Teams tab. This is to be how if you want to debug something on the tabs, how do you want to modify the HTML content? How do you want to view the console? How do you want to put a breakpoint out there? I think this link kind of captures that, which is the same thing which I was showing you out there, and you can use it same on your Android client too. Right, so this pretty much captures that aspect. If you're facing any issues during your ADB, during your device connections, and if you're debugging it for the first time, I think this documents on how do you kind of do a remote debugging using a device or emulator. That kind of helps I would definitely recommend that for the first time. If you're doing it on a device, on an Android device, you should go through it. This helps. If you're running a device, if you're running an application locally, you can pretty much use the Nginx server as well to try it out. And this was the schema which we talked about at the mid of the session, right? So this is all about the dev debug link. Developer consideration. I think this is one of this important thing which we should be talking about in a little detail. So we talked about we primarily, when we build some of the tab flows, some of the website flows, we start with the desktop primarily unless someone is really the mobile first. So it's always good to keep the responsive design consideration in mind. There are a bunch of articles out there in the web which talks about how do you want to make your app responsive. It not only gives a very good real estate to app behavior, but it also helps you to get the right traction in the different form factors, whether it's going to be your desktop client or a MacBook, or whether it's on a tablet or whether it's a mobile. The layout, how it has to be structured, the components, the styling. I think if you take care of a bunch of those, you can definitely make a big impact out there when you are onboarding that into the team, because team is pretty much available out there in all the family. It's available for web, it's available for desktop, it's available for mobile, tablet. Now we have launched it for Linux as well. So you can pretty much reach out to masses if you do the right responsive design into the consideration when you're building an application, right? If you have subscription to some of this low code no code framework, like something like Power Application, what you provide, so you can pretty much drag drop certain components, you can build your custom UIs over there, and you can pretty much build those. You can get those experience within teams too, right? Similar to what we discussed about SharePoint earlier in this discussion, we should be able to get this here as well, right? Moving next, performant web application. I think this is something which we talked about, responsiveness. How do we make a web application performant? And this definitely makes a lot of difference if you're running on a mobile, right? While mobile is a beast in a sense, there are certain limitations too in terms of the overall web view, what you kind of use it, and overall the memory which is provided to you, right? So few pointers I would say. Definitely you should keep the redirects as low as possible, right? So definitely if you move across from the server or from the client side redirection, it takes definitely a lot of bounces, and that keeps the visitor attentions and the overall network requests which are going up from the client, that takes a hit. So we should try to avoid the redirection out here. You should try to use the compression, image compression, and you should use gzip compression for the resources wherever is possible. Simplify your web design. Make sure that you don't put a lot of code over there. Try to make it as simple, as lightweight as possible, right? That definitely helps you to load faster on the mobile as well. Mobile caching, I think you can turn out the browser caching, which will definitely help you to improve the overall performance as well, right? And especially on the smartphone or a tablet, by activating the cache, that server definitely helps to return to the page move faster there. Minifying your code, we already talked. I think there are a bunch of someone who is doing a web deployment, they should be aware of it, but that's the standard practice nowadays. But if you're not minifying it, we would definitely recommend that you should minify your code and then kind of upload it to the store too when you're hosting it, right? One small input is basically, if you keep your sign-up process pretty simplified, it definitely reduces a lot of first entry friction from your client, from the customer who is using your client application to coming on board there. So that is one of those, another simple guidelines, but definitely more impactful ones. So with that, I come to the end of the session for our mobile platform. If you have any queries, I would definitely let the VILT team know about it, and you can reach out to them, and I'd be happy to help you with that. With that, thank you. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thanks for joining us for today's training. See you tomorrow, where we'll cover the following: Teams App Lifecycle Management,